After being framed time and again by the imposter who took my place, my parents kicked me out. I starved to death on the cold streets of the city. In the afterlife, the arbiter reviewed my file, his brow furrowing as he looked over my mortal record. You were set up multiple times. Why didn't you defend yourself? I did, I said, choking back tears. I told them the truth, but no one believed me. The arbiter signed a document with a flourish. If no one believed you, then let's make her speak the truth herself. I'm giving you a second chance. Jessica, the girl who had been raised in my place, saw me walk through the door. She smiled sweetly and started to say, "Sister, I've been looking forward to meeting you." But her tongue twisted, and what actually came out was, "Damn it, they actually found this trash. I need to figure out a way to make Mom and Dad kick her out onto the street. You never use foul language. We raised you to be a Vance, a lady of high society. How can you curse like a sailor?" My chest tightened. The point of her sentence was that she wanted to manipulate them into disowning me. Yet they completely ignored the malice. They didn't care that she wanted me gone. They didn't care that she called me trash. They only cared that their carefully cultivated perfect daughter had slipped up on her etiquette. Daddy, Mommy, I don't know if I should say this, but the moment Alara walked in, I felt this dark, heavy energy. My parents turned to me, their gazes instantly hardening into disgust. Alara, what kind of voodoo did you learn out in that backwater town? How dare you use it on your sister? Listen to me. Now that you are a Vance, you will follow our rules. Leave that low-class garbage behind. We brought you back not expecting you to bring us glory, but the least you can do is not embarrass us. My biological brother Tyler rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Jessica started acting strange the second Alara arrived. She must have brought something unclean into the house. We need a cleansing. I won't feel safe sleeping under the same roof otherwise. I shook my head frantically. I didn't bring anything. Jessica just accidentally spoke her mind. They ignored me. Richard immediately called up the family's spiritual advisor, a man named Brother Thomas. Thomas was a regular grifter who knew exactly which side his bread was buttered on. He exchanged a subtle glance with Jessica, before putting on a solemn face. Miss Alara is indeed carrying a dark attachment. This entity cannot be removed by prayer alone. It requires physical expulsion. Since the entity has targeted Miss Jessica, she must be the one to wield the instrument. She must strike Miss Alara 81 times with a leather whip to drive the spirit out. Without a second thought, my parents ordered the staff to tie me up. Jessica picked up the whip. Her eyes gleamed with venomous delight. "I'm so sorry, Alara. I'm only doing this for your own good." She giggled, a triumphant sound, and raised her arm to strike. But as the whip came down, her mouth betrayed her again. "Look at this. Mom and Dad always take my side. I say you're cursed and they let me beat you. In this house, you're nothing but a dog to me." Hearing this, my parents just frowned. Jessica hit harder. Beat the demon out of her. Jessica put her whole back into it. The leather sliced through my clothes, cutting into my skin. When the 81 lashes were finally over, they untied me. I collapsed to the floor, paralyzed with pain. My parents told a servant to help me upstairs, but Brother Thomas held up a hand. "Wait. Miss Alara should not stay in a spacious, comfortable room. Dark entities thrive on comfort and will return. A cramped, dark space is best." My parents thought for a moment. "The storage closet on the first floor is small and has no windows, but a bed won't fit." Thomas nodded sagely. "That is perfect. If Miss Alara suffers a bit, the entity won't want to come back." I was thrown into the damp, dark storage closet. I curled up in the corner, my body trembling with agony, despair clawing at my throat. I thought having the truth system would make this life easier. I didn't expect it to start off even harder than the last one. The door creaked open. Jessica walked in, looking down at me like I was a cockroach. "You did something, didn't you? Made me speak the truth. You're so naive, Alara. Even if I say it out loud. So what? Mom and Dad will always choose me. So what if you're the blood daughter? You're just a loser from the boonies. You think you can compete with me? Do yourself a favor and go back to the dirt you came from." Footsteps approached from the hallway. Jessica's face instantly shifted to terror. "Sister, what are you doing?" Please don't hurt me. She grabbed a letter opener from a shelf and jammed it violently into her own arm. Hearing her scream, my parents burst in, pushing past me to cradle her. Alara, what did you do to Jessica? I looked at them coldly. I didn't do anything. I just watched her perform a one-woman show. You think we believe Jessica stabbed herself? Are you insane? Jessica gasped weakly, leaning into Martha. I just asked if she was scared sleeping alone. If she wanted company. And she stabbed me. Richard and Tyler glared at me with pure hatred. Alara, how can you be so vicious? How did the Vance bloodline produce something so heartless? My father raised his hand to slap me. But Jessica's voice rang out again. I came in here to trigger this bitch. Told her she has no place here. And then I stabbed myself to frame her. She slapped her hands over her mouth. My father's hand froze in midair. The room went dead silent. I looked at my parents. Did you hear that? That is the truth. Tyler scoffed, breaking the tension. Clearly the cleansing wasn't thorough enough. The demon is still making her say crazy things to frame Jessica. My parents didn't argue. They told Tyler to take Jessica to get bandaged up. They glanced at me with cold indifference and turned to leave. Why? I asked the question to their retreating backs. You know she's telling the truth. You know she staged it. Why do you still side with her? Martha turned, a sneer curling her lip. Alara, love is built over time. It doesn't just appear because of DNA. For over a decade, Jessica has been our daughter. We poured everything into her. Even putting feelings aside, look at her. Her elegance, her speech, her education. That is what a Vance daughter looks like. You're a farm girl. You can't compare. A daughter represents the family face in public. Look at yourself. You're unpresentable. Then why bring me back at all? You think we wanted to? The police made a huge scene about finding you. We couldn't leave our biological daughter out there without the media tearing us apart. The Vance family won't let you starve, but don't you dare think you can replace Jessica. They walked away. That was the moment my heart finally froze over. I remembered the secret the arbiter had told me about Jessica. I smiled. I didn't want their cheap affection anymore. I was going to make sure they knew the truth. And then I was going to make sure they lost everything they cared about. I went to find Brian Powell. The Vance and Powell families had arranged a marriage between Brian and Jessica years ago. Brian hated the arrangement, but he couldn't defy his family's orders. When I was brought back, my face had been plastered all over the news. Brian recognized me immediately. He looked at me with bored indifference. What? Is the Vance family swapping brides now? I shook my head. I'm here to make a deal. Brian raised an eyebrow. What kind of deal? I know you don't want to marry into my family. It's just business pressure. If Vance Enterprises suddenly went bankrupt, your parents wouldn't force you to go through with the wedding, would they? I have a way to tank their stock. Brian sat up straighter. He laughed, a sharp, cynical sound. It seems the prodigal daughter has realized that blood isn't thicker than water. Well, do we have a deal, Mr. Powell? If your family goes under, you go down with them. You're willing to lose everything? I told you this is a trade. I help you destroy the Vance legacy. In return, you give me $10 million in cash. And when the bank auctions off the Vance estate, you buy it and deed it to me. That's it. That's it. $10 million was enough for a lifetime of comfort. As for the villa, in my last life, they kicked me out of it to die. In this life, I was going to kick them out. Brian nodded slowly. Bankrupting Vance Enterprises isn't a small task. What do you need from me? First, the money. Now, I don't trust you not to stiff me. Brian took the slip of paper with my account number, handed it to his secretary, and 5 minutes later, the funds cleared. I smiled. You aren't worried I'm scamming you? It's just 10 million. I'll take the gamble. Besides, no one in this city is stupid enough to scam Brian Powell. What's part 2? Next week, the Powells are hosting the Grand Gala. I need you to add a segment to the program. When I finished explaining, Brian looked at me with confusion. That's all it takes? I nodded. Just sit back and watch the show. You'll witness the Vance empire crumble in real time. A week later, the Grand Gala, the most exclusive event in the city, arrived. When the invitation arrived at the house, Jessica noticed a new addition to the schedule. All heirs and heiresses will take the stage to share a personal story from their upbringing. Jessica squealed with delight. This must be Brian's idea. He wants to get to know me better, but is too shy to ask directly, so he made a whole event out of it. It's so romantic. Like to hug you. I hugged the whole world vibes. I have to write the perfect speech. She glanced over at me, her eyes narrowing. Mom, Dad, does Alara have to speak too? I'm so curious what a farm girl would even talk about. Shoveling pig manure? Is that what you did all day, sister? My parents looked at me with undisguised revulsion. It's a high society gala. What could she possibly share without making us vomit? Alara, listen to me. Everyone knows you're back, so we have to take you. But keep your mouth shut. Smile more, speak less. Do not show your lack of breeding. We cannot afford the embarrassment. And I heard you went to see Brian the other day? You think just because you're the biological daughter you can steal Jessica's fiancé? Look in a mirror. Brian wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole, even if he had brain damage. From now on, you don't see anyone without our permission. Stop humiliating us. Jessica beamed, soaking up my humiliation. I'm going to go write my speech. Don't worry, Daddy, Mommy. I'll make the Vance name shine. Watching her skip away, a cold smile touched my lips. Yes, Jessica, prepare that speech. Make it perfect. Polish every word. It's a waste of time. Because when you open your mouth, not a single word on that paper is going to come out. Mom, Dad, I can't wait to see the look on your faces when you learn the truth. The night of the gala arrived. The Powell Ballroom was a sea of crystal chandeliers and designer gowns. Jessica walked arm in arm with Tyler, while my parents beamed with pride behind them. I trailed behind like an unwanted shadow. People recognized me as the returned daughter, and came over to look. Martha pinched the fabric of my dress, pulling me forward roughly. Yes, well, she's a country girl. Good evening, everyone. I am Jessica Vance. As many of you know, I was an orphan adopted by my wonderful parents. They gave me the best. She didn't finish the sentence. Her tongue twisted violently, and then the bombshell dropped. Actually, I'm not an orphan. My coming to the Vance family was entirely. Actually, I'm not an orphan. My coming to the Vance family was entirely planned. My biological mother sold me to them after I poisoned their real daughter's nanny and created a kidnapping accident, so they'd never find Alara. The ballroom fell silent. Glasses stopped halfway to lips. Conversations died instantly. Jessica's eyes widened in horror. She clamped both hands over her mouth, but the words kept pouring out. When I heard the Vances were searching for a replacement child after losing their daughter, my mother bribed the hospital administrator to erase records. Then she coached me for years on how to act rich because poor people are disgusting. A champagne flute shattered somewhere in the crowd. Martha's face turned paper white. Jessica, what are you saying? Jessica's body trembled violently. I'm saying your real daughter was never lost by accident. The driver who abandoned her was paid. We made sure she ended up somewhere miserable enough that she'd never crawl back into your lives. The room exploded into chaos. What? Did she just admit? Oh my God. Tyler grabbed Jessica's shoulders. Stop talking. I can't. Jessica screamed, tears streaming down her face. Something's forcing me. Then her mouth moved again. But honestly, it's kind of your fault too. You idiots were so desperate for a perfect daughter that you ignored every red flag. You practically handed me your fortune. Richard staggered backward as though slapped. Brian stood near the stage sipping wine calmly, his eyes flicking toward me with faint admiration. Jessica's voice continued mercilessly. I framed Alara because I hated looking at her face. Every time she walked into a room, I remembered this family was supposed to be hers. She turned toward the guests against her own will. And Brother Thomas helped me because I've been sleeping with him for 3 years. Brother Thomas dropped his glass. The crowd gasped louder than before. You little. Thomas lunged for Jessica. Security tackled him before he reached the stage. Jessica sobbed hysterically. Please make it stop. I don't want to say this. But her lips betrayed her again. Thomas also forged spiritual cleansing invoices and helped us siphon millions from Vance charity funds. At that exact moment, Several phones around the ballroom buzzed simultaneously. Brian's secretary had released the evidence package. Bank statements, recorded calls, bribery records, security footage, everything. Guests began checking their phones one after another. Their expressions shifted from curiosity to disgust. One wealthy investor stood abruptly. "Richard, your company used charity funds for fraud?" Another hissed. "You covered this up?" Martha turned toward me slowly, realization finally dawning in her eyes. "You," she whispered. "You did this." I smiled softly. "No," I said. "Jessica did." Jessica's mouth moved once more. "I never loved any of you. I only stayed because I wanted the money. Richard is weak, Martha is vain, Tyler is stupid, and all of them were easy to manipulate." Tyler's face twisted with rage. He stormed onto the stage and slapped her hard enough to knock her sideways. The audience gasped again. Jessica stared at him in disbelief before her mouth betrayed her yet again. "See? Violent idiot. You're not even Richard's biological son anyway." Dead silence. Tyler froze. Richard's head snapped toward Martha. "What did she just say?" Martha looked like she might faint. Jessica screamed in terror. "No. But the truth came out anyway. Martha had an affair with her tennis instructor 24 years ago. Tyler isn't a Vance." Richard let out a strangled sound. Then he punched Tyler square in the face. The ballroom dissolved into screaming chaos. Investors abandoned the Vances instantly. Socialites backed away like the family carried a disease. Reporters rushed forward like sharks smelling blood. Flashes exploded everywhere. And through all of it, Jessica's voice kept spilling truth after truth after truth. Every bribe, every affair, every crime, every lie. By the end of the night, the Vance family wasn't merely embarrassed. They were destroyed. 3 days later, Vance Enterprises collapsed. Stocks crashed so hard trading was halted twice. Banks froze their assets. Police raided the estate. Brother Thomas was arrested first. Then Martha. Then Richard. Tyler disappeared after assaulting 3 reporters outside the courthouse. Jessica became the most hated woman in the country overnight. Turns out people don't sympathize much with a manipulative fraud whose own mouth confesses everything. As for me, I stood outside the auction Vance estate while movers dragged furniture onto the lawn. Richard and Martha looked 20 years older. Their designer clothes were wrinkled now, their eyes hollow. When they saw me standing at the gates, Martha burst into tears. "Alara, please, we know we're wrong now." Richard swallowed hard. "We were manipulated." I laughed. The sound made them flinch. "Manipulated?" I repeated. "You watched your daughter get whipped 81 times because it was convenient for you." Neither of them could answer. Martha dropped to her knees. "Please give us another chance." I looked past them toward the mansion behind them. My mansion now. Brian had kept his word. The estate belonged to me. I stepped closer until Martha looked up hopefully. Then I spoke softly. "When I begged you to believe me, you told me I was unpresentable." Their faces crumpled. "I starved to death in my last life because of you." Richard's expression shattered completely. "You don't deserve another chance," I said coldly. "You deserve to lose everything exactly the way I did." Security opened the gates behind me, then closed them in their faces. And for the first time in both my lives, I walked into the Vance estate as its rightful owner while they stood outside with nowhere left to go. The collapse of the Vance family wasn't quick. It was slow, public, cruel, exactly the way they had destroyed me. Richard Vance was charged with fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, and obstruction of justice. The courts froze every account tied to his name. The media dug up decades of corruption. Investors sued him into oblivion. But prison wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that no one respected him anymore. The mighty Richard Vance, once treated like royalty, became a joke. Former business partners testified against him just to save themselves. Men who used to bow to him now smirked when he walked into court in handcuffs. Then prison population learned what he had allowed to happen to his biological daughter. The beatings started during his first week. His jaw got broken over cafeteria food. Someone shattered 2 of his ribs with a mop handle. Another inmate carved the word coward into his forehead with a razor. By the time he got released years later, he limped permanently and flinched whenever someone raised their voice. No company would hire him. No bank would touch him. He ended up sleeping behind a convenience store 2 districts away from the mansion he used to own. One winter morning, they found him frozen beside a dumpster clutching old newspaper articles about the Vance family's glory days. No one claimed the body. Martha Vance's punishment was worse in a different way. She had built her entire identity around status, beauty, and public admiration. The internet destroyed her within days. Her old charity speeches became memes. People edited clips of her calling me unpresentable, next to photos of her being dragged into court sobbing with smeared makeup. Luxury brands publicly cut ties with her. Socialites she once mocked leaked years of gossip and secrets out of spite. Even worse, her affair became front-page news nationwide. The tennis instructor sold every detail to tabloids. Every message. Every hotel receipt. Every voice recording. She became a laughingstock. Then Tyler publicly disowned her during a drunken interview. I wish she'd died instead of Alara. That clip spread everywhere. After prison, Martha tried desperately to claw her way back into high society. No one let her in. At one event, security physically threw her out into the rain while guests filmed and laughed. The videos got millions of views. Eventually, Martha became obsessed with plastic surgery, trying to reclaim her youth and image. Botched procedure after botched procedure ruined her face. Her skin stretched unnaturally tight. One eye drooped lower than the other. People online started calling her the Wax Widow. She overdosed alone in a cheap apartment filled with old photographs of herself. The landlord didn't notice for 9 days. Tyler's downfall became legendary online. Finding out Richard wasn't his biological father snapped something inside him. He attacked reporters, attacked lawyers, attacked random strangers who insulted him online. Every meltdown went viral. He developed a gambling addiction trying to win back the Vance fortune. Instead, he buried himself in debt. Loan sharks started hunting him. One night they caught him outside a casino. They shattered his kneecaps with a tire iron. After that, Tyler couldn't walk without braces. But he still kept gambling. Eventually he owed the wrong people too much money. They took payment another way. Videos surfaced online of Tyler humiliating himself for cash in underground clubs. The former golden heir of the Vance family became entertainment for criminals. Years later, I saw him once at a subway station. Dirty hoodie, missing teeth, begging for change. He recognized me immediately. Started crying. I walked right past him. Brother Thomas suffered the fastest punishment. Police found evidence linking him to fraud, coercion, blackmail, and abuse across multiple wealthy families. Dozens of victims came forward. The holy man, who preached purity, got sentenced to decades in prison. Religious inmates hated him. Violent inmates hated him. Everyone hated him. Rumor said guards deliberately ignored his cries for help. After a brutal assault left him partially paralyzed, he spent the rest of his sentence unable to move the lower half of his body. The last thing he ever publicly said before disappearing from media coverage was, "I think God abandoned me." And Jessica? Jessica suffered the most. Because the truth never stopped. The arbiter's gift hadn't faded. Every lie she tried to tell twisted into honesty. Forever. At first people thought it was funny. Talk show hosts invited her on for views. Interviewers baited her intentionally. "Jessica, do you regret what happened?" "I regret not killing Alara sooner." "Career over." "Jessica, are you trying to become a better person?" "No. I'm trying to manipulate public sympathy because being poor sucks." Sponsors vanish. Instantly. Did you ever love your parents? I loved their money. Eventually no one wanted her near them. She couldn't hold jobs because she exposed every co-worker's secrets accidentally. She couldn't date because every manipulative thought came out loud. She couldn't even post online without humiliating herself. The truth destroyed every relationship she ever tried to build. People became terrified of being around her. Then came the final twist. The biological mother, who helped orchestrate the original kidnapping, came looking for her after the scandal broke. Not out of love, Out of greed, Jessica admitted everything to her face within minutes, including the fact that she had secretly hidden money from her. Her mother beat her savagely for it. After that, Jessica disappeared from public view. Years later, rumors spread about a homeless woman wandering the city muttering truths nonstop to herself, exposing strangers, ruining affairs, starting fights everywhere she went. Some people said she was cursed. Others said she deserved it. One snowy night, security cameras caught her standing outside the gates of the former Vance estate staring at the mansion for hours. My mansion. She looked old, broken, half insane. When security approached her, she laughed hysterically and said, "I stole someone else's life and still lost everything. Isn't that funny?" Then she walked into the snowstorm. They never found her body,